Alright, so in this video we're going to create the registration function. We are not going to create the verify email yet. So what we are going to do is we're going to go in and create a function called register. And in here we want to basically go in and first of all create a variable called user that will be equals to user create, which will basically just be an array which will contain first of all username, which is gonna be basically just request username, and then we're also gonna have name, which is gonna be request name. So basically we're just grabbing each details from the request we sent via Axios, which is what we're going to use on the front end for that matter. And then we're going to set country to request country. Then we're going to put in, I think we call this, just to be sure that we don't make any errors, we call this email verified, which is default 0. We're gonna let that stay 0, and then we're also gonna have email, which we are gonna basically put in as request email, and then we also want to put in a password, which we are gonna add in as bcrypt, which we're gonna use as encryption. Request password. So basically this is how we are gonna create our user. So again, we also of course need to include the app user model here. So what we're going to do is we're basically just grabbing the data from the user model, and we also have to set in request like this. Okay, great. So what we're doing now is basically when we want this variable, it will basically create a user. And then what we want to do is we want to make an attempt to log the user in based upon the email and the password we have gotten that's not encrypted, of course. So when we do that, the reason why we want to do this as well is because we can then go in and log the user in just after this. So let's go in and do that. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to use the basically just the JWT-auth facade, and we want to basically go in and say public function construct JWT-auth authentication, and then we want to basically go in here, just tidy this up because I like to have it like this as well here. Okay, great. So what we want to do now is we want to say a protected auth, and then we basically want to put this auth is equal to authentication. So basically what we want to do now is we want to go in and say this auth is gonna be trying to attempt with a request only, which will mean we only request with email and password. Now we are gonna create a login that will actually use a filter system to check if you are using an email, or if not, then we will check if there's a username with that record. So, but in this case we only need to use the email because there's no reason to use the username and make it more complicated than it already is, since we already have that detail from the system here. So we want to do that, and then we want to return a response JSON, and in this response we will return a meta, and we will like to return some data. Okay, so in case of the meta we want to say authenticated equals true, and in case of the data we want to say user is equal to user, and then we basically want to, of course, make this functional here. So basically why we want to do this is because we want to be able to see if you're authenticated. If you're authenticated, then it will check if your user details exist, and if your user details exist and you are authenticated, then we will automatically grab the data from the database. And this is again something we're going to talk about much more on the front end part. And also, beside the authenticated true, we will send in a token, which we are gonna say equal to token. At the moment, we're just gonna call it token. We're gonna deal with this variable in just a moment. Alright, great. So basically, the reason why we wanna say token here is because we are basically going to make this a token, because this will basically, if successful, return a token here. Put it in here, and then in the next video we are gonna deal with login system, and then we are gonna deal with the validation of the data here, and as well we are gonna deal with testing the login and register system. The reason why we're splitting it up like this is because the validation system on the register control at least is gonna be a bit more complicated, since we are gonna first of all check for the name field and ensure that the name field can allow spaces but no numbers and no special characters, because that will also bring in an invalid name. So basically, to make sure that would not happen, we would like to do that, and then we would also create a custom one for the username, make sure that the username is unique, make sure the email is unique, make sure the password and password confirmation matches, and as well, beside that, we also need to be sure that the password is a valid password, which means it contains some secure things, and it's not like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 without any letters. So we want to be sure that we create a secure password for the user, and that's actually all for this video. So right now you would be able to register the user using Postman on this request when you have created the route. So basically that's actually possible now to register a user. It just doesn't validate any of the data, which of course is important.